Oh hey there, it's Kelly from Messy Ever After, aka Mia. After many requests, I'm finally going to show you guys how I make my layered backgrounds and give you all the info you need to try this out for yourself. To begin, let's go over the paint that you'll need. For my base layers, I use this Acrylic White, but I also use heavy body professional acrylics like Liquitex Professional, Blick Artist Acrylics, and Bria Reese Acrylics. Next, you'll need a fluid paint mixture. This is basically a high flow acrylic paint that works great for building translucent layers. I like to mix my own recipe, and I use a third of the bottle of acrylic paint, a third of Floetrol, and a third of water, and then I just shake up the bottle to mix everything together. Now, the reason I use a variety of paints is because of the need for varying opacity. Heavy body paints are going to be more opaque, so they're not as see-through, and then the fluid paint mixtures are going to be more transparent, so that's where you get those really nice blended colors showing through. If you don't want to mix your own fluid paints, you can also use golden fluid acrylics. They're more expensive, but they are highly pigmented and they're high quality. Now for brushes, I like to use cheap synthetic brushes. They're a few bucks for a pack. I like the 1 inch and the 2 inch, and I use a few of them per piece. You don't need anything too fancy as long as it blends well. And then we'll need the Catalyst Wedge. This is used with the fluid paint, and I will show you how to use this later. But for now, let's get started with the base of the piece. So to start, I'm using a 10 by 10 inch Blick Studio canvas, and I start first by adding some of that Blick Acrylic White to the base. I like to mix all of my colors on the canvas. I don't want to say that it's because I'm lazy, but it's a little bit of that. So I choose my heavy-bodied acrylic paints, and I put everything down on the canvas. For this one, I am using orange, yellow, and blue. I haven't used any water so far because the white acrylic is pretty smooth. So first I like to start with a 1 inch brush and start spreading out that white, and then I will slowly work into the colors one by one. If you find that your brush isn't spreading the colors as easily as you want, maybe you have a really heavy body paint, you can definitely have a spray bottle with water nearby so you can kind of spritz the surface and make it more workable. When I first start blending colors on the canvas, I like to start blending the lighter colors first. So I started with the yellow, and then I grabbed another brush and started working with the orange, and then I'm going to grab another brush when I start working with the blue. So I will usually have multiple brushes in my hands as I'm switching between the colors. And that's beneficial because as I'm switching between orange, yellow, and blue, I'm kind of cleaning up and blending those borders. So switching those brushes between borders helps me to keep the colors cleaner and helps keep one color from dominating the other color when I don't want it to. Now that this first layer is done, you need to let it dry completely before you move on to the next. Now for the second layer, we're going to do kind of the same thing. I'm still taking the heavy body paints and putting it directly onto the canvas, but then I'm using this white fluid mixture, and this is going to help blend the colors a little bit more. So for this layer, I want the colors to be a little bit more saturated, but I still want to loosely blend it into that background color. So I'm putting the pink and the orange on top of the original first layer orange and just working my way around. A little bit of white, a little bit of the color. I'm still switching between brushes as well to keep the colors pure. I also love switching to different brushes because it allows me to have this kind of bouncy, cloudy feeling. So as I go from one color and adding white and then switching to another color brush, I can have more of a loose blend that has that dreamy, cloud-like feel to it. Now for the second layer, I have started to incorporate different colors that are more part of the full rainbow spectrum. So I added that teal color, and now I'm bringing in this lavender color, and I had added pink in the beginning. I want things to have that gradual shift of the rainbow from magenta to orange to yellow and so on. You can also see that I have abandoned the brush and I'm using my fingers to blend. Sometimes I want to eliminate brush strokes and just have that smooth blending, and sometimes finger painting is the way to go. Okay, so now that the base is done, it is time to use the Catalyst Wedge. So for the Catalyst Wedge, I like to use my fluid paints, obviously, because we're going to be building up the most translucent layers now to really build that dimension and depth. So I just do one thin strip of paint across the wedge and then apply it to the canvas. You can use different pressure. You know, the harder you press, the more translucent the layer is going to be. If you do lighter pressure, you can get more of an opaque layer, as you see there. And then I use my finger to blend the outer edges of the design, whatever you want to call it. Clearly I take myself very seriously. I don't even have names for the techniques that I use. Anyway, so I really love the Catalyst Wedge because I'm able to do all of these organic shapes and lines and really build up these layers. But as you're working, it's important not to go over the areas that you have already worked on. So as you can see, I put the blue down. I need to wait for that to dry before I can start building up layers. I'm gonna go over it a little bit with that yellow, but you have to have really, really light pressure, otherwise you're just gonna pull up the previous layer that you just put down. So only so much that I can really say about this technique other than have patience, make sure that you wait for things to dry. Don't be afraid to go over the same area a couple of times, like when you're laying down one color and you don't like the way that it looks, you can use harder pressure, lift it back up, and then reapply it. I still, use my fingers to blend. If I lay down too much color, like I'm doing right now, I like to have a tissue next to me and I will go ahead and just lift that color, maybe just do some light blending so that everything looks the way that I want it to. There's really no screwing up. Like, you can correct some of the mistakes, but yeah, just make sure that each layer dries and then just keep building it up. So I'll usually work around the canvas corners as much as I can with one application, let that dry, and then apply another round of colors, let that dry, and just keep building and building and blending and building. I like to mix all of my fluid colors ahead of time so that I don't have to waste time mixing, but there are some times when I need a specific color. So like right here, I'm applying 2 different fluid mixtures and then using a palette knife and actually like mixing the shade that I want on the Catalyst Wedge. So, anything goes. A lot of my background work is pretty intuitive. I wish that I could say that I was well versed with color theory. I know the basics of secondary and primary and tertiary and complementary colors, but when it comes to choosing the colors that you want to use for this background, I say feel it out. I like to stare at the canvas, let it tell me what it needs. I don't really have a set, logical process as to why I choose the colors that I'm using beyond, I just think this will look good. So I don't want you to think that your work should look exactly like this, because your canvas is going to ask for something different. Make sure that you follow your intuition and see what happens. With this tutorial, I don't want you to copy this work exactly. I want to give you the tools so that you can play and use these new techniques and then see what your creative voice comes up with. Okay, so the background is done, so I'm going to go over this fine line precision applicator. So if you follow my work, you know that I'm obsessed with this tool. This is a bottle that I fill with acrylic paint. I'll use a high quality like Blick Artist acrylic and a little bit of water. I like to pre-mix the water and paint in these squeezable bottles so that I can easily refill my fine liners when I run out. I don't have an exact ratio of water to paint. You just kind of have to feel out the flow. When you buy these bottles, I have a 1/2-inch tip, but I also have 1-inch tips. If you buy them now, you're likely going to get a 1-inch tip. Both of them are still, good to work with. The 1/2-inch tip might be a little bit easier for some people to use, but you will need to practice with both of them. Like, I easily switch between both of the tips now. A little practice goes a long way. So when you are filling the bottles, it should have a really easy flow. A light squeeze, you should be able to get a nice, fine, consistent line coming out. I should have said this earlier, that I will leave links and details for you to learn all about all the supplies that I'm using and, find the products that I'm recommending in the description below, caption below. I don't even know where I'm posting this video yet, but I will provide links. But for the fine line applicator, if you have too much water in there, the paint's just going to kind of fall out. If you have too little water, then the bottle's going to be too hard to squeeze and, it just won't be easy for you to use. So as you are playing with your mixture, just feel it out, adjust as necessary. I have to do a lot of adjustments even after using these bottles for a couple of years. So just be patient with it. So in these types of backgrounds, I really like to feel out where my lines go. I like to use the curves of those wedge applications to really dictate where my lines are going to go. So I will start in one area where the lines feel like they most belong, and then I will slowly work my way around the rest of the canvas and fill things out as it speaks to me. It sounds so hippy-dippy, but that's my process. A lot of times I don't know exactly where my lines are going to go. I just pick a starting point and slowly move forward, and after staring at the canvas for a couple minutes at a time and applying little pieces here and there, I can suddenly stand back and be like, oh, it's finished. So feel it out. And don't be afraid of making mistakes. Some people get intimidated by these fine liners as if, laying down lines is permanent, but I make mistakes. I did not like this section here, so I just keep a spray bottle next to me, and, if I get to the lines within 30 seconds of applying it, I can spray with water, use a tissue, and just wipe it up and start over. So there's room for error, and I love that so much with these lines, because I don't like fearing failure. It holds us back creatively. And I have to give you a behind the scenes tidbit about recording the voiceover for this video. I am currently sitting in my closet with my laptop in front of me as I'm doing this voiceover, because it was the quietest place, and it's so funny the amount of work that goes into putting these things together. Like, you're gonna watch this and it's like 13 minutes of me talking eloquently, but instead it's been me sitting here going, no, that didn't sound good, let me re-record that. And I think I've been in my closet for like 2 hours. I really need to get out of here. But anyway, I like to add splatters to the darker parts of my canvas with a coarse bristled brush, so I'm just dipping this into a white fluid mixture and flicking the bristles so that I can have that splatter effect and just give a little more dimension to those darker pieces. And then I come in, finish the last of the line work, and then I refine some of those splatters with the Fine Line Precision Applicator, and it is finished. Okay, well, it's not 100% finished yet because I go in with Liquitex High Gloss Varnish. So I really love this varnish. It does not lie, it is a high gloss. So I use a foam brush to apply this. This will help eliminate streaks. You have to be really gentle with how you apply pressure, but use this foam brush, do 2 coats, let it dry 3 hours between each coat, and then you are left with this perfectly glossy, streak-free finished canvas. So if you haven't tried this varnish yet, I definitely recommend that you do so. And if you have questions about any of the supplies that I've used, I will provide links and details below so that you can learn more. Thank you so much for watching and for wanting to learn more from me. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And then if you would like to support the work that I am doing here, that, support my art, support this video, support whatever you want, if you buy any of the products through my affiliate links that I provide, I will earn a commission. It's at no additional cost to you, and it helps to fund the creation of this content. So thank you so much. Make sure that you follow me on Instagram and consider checking out my Patreon page if you like what I'm doing and want to offer more support. Also, you could buy original art and prints from my online store at shop.messyeverafter.com. So, go get messy, my friends. Thanks so much.